Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, here we are again, yet at another installment of Kentico's Market Insights webinar. So hopefully everyone's having a great day, and I appreciate everyone taking their lunch break if you're on the East Coast, or sorry, if you're on the West Coast, or some of your afternoon and joining us today. Again, if you're first time to joining us, then we look forward to seeing you again, and hopefully if this is a repeat attendance for you, welcome back. The whole idea to this webinar series is that we want to deliver quality content and basically information to marketers and digital strategists who are effectively looking to stay on top and stay on top of the latest trends and learn about the things that are going on in this rapidly changing industry. And today's session, obviously you've joined us, so you're well aware of what today's session is, but it's titled Member Associations and the Power of Kentico EMS. Our host presenter today is a gentleman, Mick Varga from 3 Degrees North. Now, if you have heard of Mick, if you've heard of 3 Degrees North, then you're probably in the association space. Mick is personally the managing director, or sorry, is personally the co-founder and CTO of 3 Degrees North, and their organization is headquartered or founded in Melbourne, Australia, although they have a large presence in the U.S. as well. So a little bit about Mick and kind of why we identified him as being an appropriate, or I guess an influential presenter of this topic. He's essentially a passionate advocate for not only Kentico, but also the power that it brings to associations. And he spent a majority of his working life in the association sector, having worked in Australia, the UK, and as I mentioned before, the US. And he's delivered solutions to hundreds of associations, as well as member and support-based organizations. And is effectively committed to improving the way that organizations deliver to their members and their supporters, and basically is vocal in trying to stop the executives making bad decisions. Decisions that don't deliver value to members, the decisions that don't deliver on the mandate given to the association by its members. And before I hand the presentation over to him to kind of educate our audience of all things related to member associations, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the company that he represents. And 3 Degrees North strives to be recognized as the best supplier of integrated websites for associations in Australia and North America. And they aim to achieve this by providing associations with the right tools to create an experience for members that's both personalized, targeted, and effective. With their collective experience, expertise, they truly believe that they can help associations achieve unprecedented levels of performance. And effectively, they place associations in the driver's seat, enabling them to deliver an array of content and services to their members, which is always relevant and always beneficial. Now, how we recognized 3 Degrees North is the fact that, here we go, they are currently a Kentico Gold Solution Partner. So if you've attended these sessions before, you recognize that a Gold Solution Partner is the top level of our recognition for partners, and the illustration of the number of projects they've done on Kentico, as well as the number of certified developers that they have on staff. And they have, not only achieved Gold Partner status, but they're also certified with Kentico 10 for developer, as well as certified on Kentico 10 with marketing as well. And they have vast experience in taking advantage of Kentico to integrate it into one of the most prevalent member association management solutions, which is EMS. And so they have a large breadth of experience in doing that as well. Now, some of the organizations or some of the client sites that they've worked on and they've found success with are organizations like Australian Dental Association, Real Estate Institute of Victoria, and the Royal College of Pathologists of Australia. Again, just to name a couple, you can also read those on this slide here. but many of these have also received industry recognitions as well as Kentico recognitions. So again, they've had a lot of recognition and accolades for the work that they're doing in this industry. So with that brief introduction, I'd like to remind you that through the presentation, please submit your questions submit your questions through the presentation, because towards the end we will try to wrap up with a question and answer session. So we'll try to take care of all of those questions and all that cleanup at the end. And finally, I'd like to welcome Mick Varga, the co-founder and CTO of 3 Degrees North, to Market Insights, and he's going to provide us some education and insight on member associations and the power of Kentico EMS. So welcome to the show, Mick.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for the great introduction. Need to get you doing our marketing for us. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today. Also, I just want to thank Kentico for organising these sessions. They're a great opportunity. I've found a number of the sessions in the series really powerful and useful, and I recommend going back. There are even a couple of others that relate to the association sector early in the series, so I really recommend going back and watching those. And thanks everyone who's online for taking the time today. As Eric said, I'm Mick Varga, I'm Managing Director of 3 Degrees North. We are a specialist digital agency that focuses on delivering services to the association sector. And we do have a specialist background, I guess, in integration of back-end platforms, what's generally called the association management system, or I suppose what you would think of as a specialist CRM platform, and integrating that into the digital environment. And I'll talk about why we do that and what benefits that brings. Really, I've just got a couple of key objectives that I'm trying to get across today, and they're kind of the same. I recognize there might be a combination of people online today from either other digital agencies who are providing Kentico services, other Kentico partners, or maybe people working directly in associations. But ultimately, I'm trying to just get across why the concepts around things like content personalisation, targeted content, providing content that's relevant at the time to the visitor, audience specific segmentation, why those things are really vital to the association, and really trying to contextualise for you, perhaps in a somewhat different way than you may have seen until now, around how to explain why those things are so vital. We've struggled, perhaps up until 18 months ago, we struggled in trying to explain sort of why we thought these were so relevant, because so many of the examples that we saw being provided to us, and even think about when you look at Kentico and the demonstration sites that you get from Kentico, they tend to be focused on online retail and customer journey in terms of a single buying cycle. And we found that our association customers and prospects struggled to maybe contextualize that. So I'm going to try and give you some different context around that today. So hopefully you'll see really just how critical it is to provide that targeted experience to the member, and I think essentially just if it's not already there, to get the sort of tools and technologies that are built into Kentico EMS onto your radar, sort of to go beyond just the presentation of a great website, which has always been what you can do with Kentico, and into then personalizing and targeting the content to the right person at the right time. I've got, I think, 35 to 40 minutes of content. Hopefully you're going to have some questions at the end. Any question that you want, just fire it through. I'll answer whatever I can, and if I can't, I'll come back to you. What I'm really not going to cover today, and I guess what are things that have already been covered previously in this series, but which you can either also find great information about online, but if you are in a digital agency, things that I'm going to guess that you're already expert in, which are the sort of how some of these things occur. So, you know, I'm not really going to talk about too much about how you do personas, how you define your segments, you know, how you dissect your audience. I'm going to assume that you know that, and maybe you even know that better than us, and really that this is really well covered, and there are quite a few sessions previously in this series that talk specifically about those things. What I'm really going to focus on is, given that you know how to do those things, how you can apply them in the association context, and perhaps where the relevance is in the association context. So what's coming up next, and the way that I'm going to flow through this, I've sort of created this idea of a hypothetical association, the Association of Photographic Professionals, AAPP. I'm going to look at what they do, why they do what they do, what's special about an association, sort of, and talk about them, but really, you know, why an association does what it does, what makes an association special or maybe different from a corporate, and then look at the kind of services that associations provide, look at what they're doing right now in terms of digital, and how we might be able to make it better by using the tools and technologies that we've got available to us in Kentico EMS, and then combining that with some of these rich insights that you can get from their association management platform. So Eric briefly mentioned IMS. I'm going to talk a touch about IMS, but really more generically than that, about sort of what information is available to you in order to drive understanding of the audience and being able to segment and personalize. So with that, I'm going to get going. I'm going to start off by just talking a bit about the why. You know, why does an association exist? And really, I've found the longer that I've worked in this sector, the more important it has become for me to think about the why. So to think less about or to contextualize the services that the association provides, and really think more, why do they exist and why are they providing those services? Because although in most cases the association is my customer, I'm really trying to think from the member's perspective. So, you know, so I really want to try and think, you know, what is the member trying to get out of their relationship with the association? And really, the member's perspective is most critical here. You know, I'm sure in all walks of life this is probably true, but you know, occasionally I come across an association where I get the feeling that almost, if it wasn't for that pesky member, their entire world would be wonderful. So, you know, but there's no doubt the association only exists because of the member. There's no chicken and egg kind of analogy here. You know, every association that exists was formed because initially some group of like-minded people came together and thought they've got these individual purposes and common purposes that they're trying to reach, and they're going to connect with each other and form a group that's going to drive towards those individual and common purposes. And those purposes that they have are long-term and really, you know, almost life goals, but certainly career goals. You know, so if you think about the kind of purpose that you think about when you're looking at an online retail customer journey, you know, this goes a little beyond trying to buy a pair of shoes or a new dress or, you know, a new something online, a new computer. these are goals that are multi-dimensional, that have lots of stages, and that for the most part, you'll hear associations have always talked about a member journey. So for the most part, it is about, not just the stage that the member is in and their purpose in that stage, but also this connection to a much longer term purpose. The members also came together because they realized that there was power in numbers. And so the association's also vital in connecting members to each other, and there's no doubt that some of this has been under threat, if you want to call it threat, or maybe being kind of sort of moved sideways by social networking and platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook, obviously, and enabling members to connect outside of the framework of the association. But there's no doubt that the association is still providing services around these joint connected member goals that can't be gained through those social channels. So it's about voice. The members came together because they realized that they had a more powerful shared voice, and it's the association that's providing either the lobbying or the media relations on behalf of that group. It might be about group purchasing or economics, that they work out by coming together, that they can get a better deal or get a better affinity relationship with a company through having banded together. And then ultimately, they've come together because I think in a lot of cases they're trying to protect the profession, and then I suppose by extension themselves, and protect that purpose that they had, and the association is vital in providing that. So, it's essentially really another way of talking about that shared purpose, but through their connectivity with each other. And then, ultimately, the association's about promoting growth. So creating an environment where members can grow and flourish, and that might be, promoting members to the public, by providing a recognition of a minimum standard that, a member of the AAPP is going to be a better photographer or a better business person or better to deal with, and ultimately, so providing those promotional services, but they also are about growth in terms of things like technical skills. So, providing training, providing mentoring services, providing business skills, how to run a business. So, services that relate to, support, advice, guidance, legal, etc., etc. So I've sort of talked about, the why, and I'm sure, if you work in an association or you work with associations, there'll be lots of more vertical whys that you can think about. But, ultimately, I've distilled them up to 3 or 4 things, really, just to create context for today. I just want to talk a bit about what makes associations different from a general organisation, and I am a little loath always to talk about what makes someone's different, because generally we will walk into an association and the first thing they'll say is, well, we're not like every other association, we're different because, and then they'll proceed to tell us something that really tells us exactly why they are alike. And I know there are things here that will align with corporates, but I think there are a few things that it's worth bearing in mind when you're working with an association that affect the digital experience, and I just want to highlight a few of them. The first is that there's this concept that really it's not a super competitive environment. It's not like someone, and it might not be the case with professional photography. There might be a series of options, but in many cases for membership organizations, it's really the choice between being a member of the association and not being a member, not choosing between 5 different like associations. It's rare if you think about saying legal. There's not going to be a bar association that I can choose 5 different ones. I have to be a member of the bar association in most cases, so there might be even a mandatory membership for a number of them. So the digital experience is not so much a competitive sale, but more about stating a value proposition, which still goes to the competitive sale, but it tends to be wider, again, talking about that life goal and talking about sort of selling the concept of why being a member of an organization is a valuable thing and why coming together for those common goals is valuable. So there's again about selling that journey. But the other effect I think this has, and it has had with us, is that it definitely affects a sort of a reluctance within the association to think about, doing things like personalisation and maybe these deeper marketing kind of goals, because they think they've got a captive market, and it's almost like, well, why do I need to do this? I don't need to segment or personalise because the member's not going anywhere. And really, part of what I want to show you today is why the opposite of that is the case. The second thing I just want to talk about is the commerce experience, and really, in many cases, I think it's just important to consider that within associations, the commerce experience is not a shopping experience. That people don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to be a member of somewhere today. Where will I go and have a look? And I'm going to shop around. It's generally part of an ongoing conversation that they've been having through marketing, through some hopefully targeted campaign process or a series of targeted communications that might be starting even before they're qualified in the profession. But when they come to actually do the transaction, the shopping experience can tend to be a bad experience because you're really just adding clicks and thoughts in the way. So it's led us to thinking about creating that experience in a much more linear and individual way, so that single page, reduced number of clicks, get everything done in one view, and really get out of the way as much as possible of the person completing the transaction once they come to doing that. The next thing I just wanted to highlight is that the vast majority of things that relate to conversions is about consumption of content rather than transaction or purchase. Associations have huge volumes of content. It's pretty much a guaranteed that when we're building a website or doing content analysis and structuring content out for our customers, that a starting point for a site is 5,000 content items, and we have some customers that might have 15,000 to 20,000 content items. So volumes of content are incredibly high. Lots of structured content, research papers, policy, guidelines, seminar papers, etc., etc. And so the experience that the visitor to the site is looking for 9 times out of 10 tends to be about getting to a piece of content and consuming it in the best way possible. They generally have come to the site with an idea that I am trying to find X, and so I'm trying to find information about aperture speeds and the best aperture speed to use on a particular setting, and I just want to get to that and know about that in the quickest way possible. So whether that's better use of search, whether that's better information architecture, but generally whether we think it's about better personalization of the content to know what content is relevant to who, so that when a member comes to visit the site, that we're influencing them to have the best experience possible by streamlining their access to the content. And then, so the last sort of thing I wanted to highlight really goes back to almost where I started with the first why, is that when we're talking about journey, we're talking about what I think is a much more three-dimensional view of a journey. So I've got no doubt that if you're working with commercial organisations and even things like online retail, that there is a benefit to also considering a long-term customer relationship, to consider the customer relationship beyond just this one purchase. But in this association sector, I think that thinking is just much more critical, because it informs everything that you're going to do when you're deciding about what persona to put someone in, what contact groups and segments to put them in, what content to show them based on that. Because it's not just the journey that they're on in a particular buying cycle. So if I'm looking for a particular piece of content, or I'm trying to find a training course to attend, I want to be influencing that process, but that is part of a context of a wider of a wider process, and those journeys are going to be very different for people that have started at the same point. So two people who graduate from a photography degree might then head off down very different pathways and have very different needs based on those pathways. And so you need to be considering those pathways that they're on in terms of that life journey, as well as the individual buying journey when you're segmenting them. So I now just, the last sort of context piece, I guess, is I just want to touch on, what does the association do for its members? What are the services that they offer? And AAPP is going to be like most associations. The services at a broad level tend to be, a pretty common set. That there are some skills-based things, around training, research, policy, events, mentoring, things that are about growing skills, growing technical proficiency. There's promotional services around, providing things like referrals, find a service, find a photographer, professional networking, promotion within the network. There are some economic services, things that I've talked about already, things like bulk purchasing, affinity programs, and then advocacy, lobbying, media relations, so on and so forth. So those kind of services, very common, very common. So we've talked about sort of the why. We've looked at sort of some of the purpose related things of the association. We've looked at some of the things about why that's a bit different in the association space, and why it's different when you compare it to maybe the commercial sector. We've kind of looked at the services that the association provides. And now I want to look at kind of, you know, what the associations are doing, how we can maybe bring some of the tools in Kentico to bear on what the association's doing, some of the tools in the online marketing suite and the EMS, driving personalisation, driving things that are really about targeting the members' needs and so on. And the first thing I want to recognise when I talk about this is that for the vast majority, and certainly it's even the case in our customer base, that associations are still lagging behind when it comes to this stuff. So for the most part, they're still either just thinking about it or dipping their toe in the water, or they're looking at it from the outside going, gee, I wish I was doing that. But for the most part, they're not doing it. So, you know, when you look at an association website, and, you know, you can look at the example of the AAPP, in the large majority of associations, you know, what you're going to find is that you get this very one-size-fits-all kind of presentation of content. You know, it's very much, you know, here are the services that we provide, and now, regardless of who you are, you go and work it out. It's very agnostic to the audience who's viewing the site. Everything that's presented is very departmental, and, you know, I spent literally 5 minutes Googling and making some screenshots. You could do this exercise yourself, and you're going to find, you know, go and look at associations and their websites, and you're going to find these same kind of navigation structures. It's very common. Nothing is personalized. Everything is pretty much one size fits all. And that doesn't mean that associations aren't delivering, you know, nice looking, beautiful digital experiences. You can still have a great design, and, you know, some of them do. We think as we've grown, we've provided better design to our customers. We're delivering a nice visual experience. We're delivering a nice experience in terms of through the process. You know, we're making great use of imagery, promoting things in a you know, rich way. So I'm getting, you know, nice calls to action, so on and so forth. And you know, even in some customers, you know, some nice or improvements in things like information architecture to make being able to navigate to content and make it more intuitive, perhaps to know where to go and look for that service that you're after. But ultimately, it's still this kind of one size fits all model. And you know, it just doesn't have to be this way anymore. We know from the work that we're doing in defining personas and segmentation, you know, using contact groups, contact segmentation in Kentico, and then all of the tools that we've got to apply those things, that actually we can do something that is much, much more targeted. And the first thing that I want to explain in this concept of targeting is that in the association world, the richness of the data that is available for you to do this targeting on is just unprecedented. So this isn't like online retail. I don't know about you, but you know, having experienced the online retail world now for, you know, 10 years, and or you know, in the way that we've been getting more discreetly targeted, remarketed to, how intensely the journey is being kind of controlled. I'm very, very kind of guarded about the information that I give over in terms of enabling the online retailer to target me. I try and share as little as possible. members just aren't like that with their association. They're willingly sharing an incredibly vast amount of information that is three-dimensional as well. So it's not just like demographic property information, but it's also, you know, it's like everywhere I've ever worked, you know, what job titles I've held, you know, every course I've ever done, what qualifications I hold, who I'm related to, you know, who I am, what special interests I have, and you know, more often than not, they're also sharing stuff that's very aspirational. You know, so they're not just sharing information about what they've done and who they are now, but where they want to get to. So, you know, they're sharing information about career goals, they're sharing information about aspirations, and I believe that they're doing this because the intention of the member is that they want the association to use this information to target them. You know, so they really want the association to be providing them with this personalized experience. Otherwise, why would I be giving over all this information? And this is really where I just want to talk for a second about the association management platform. So I'm going to talk in a second about EMS and what we've done with EMS, but really this is, you know, a wider thinking. You know, these systems are sort of specialist CRM, and actually what is becoming much more prevalent, what's become prevalent over the last 5 years or so, you know, is that CRM platforms like Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics CRM, with kind of vertical add-ons, have been moving into the association space. So there are lots of associations using those, I suppose what would be now, you know, industry standard CRM platforms. But historically, and certainly for us, you know, we've worked in the association sector for a long time, and so that has tended to be working with these specialist association management platforms. But they are essentially just, you know, vertical CRMs with some attached functionality that enables sort of some of the vertical things that associations do to be done. And really, what we've done is really sort of think about unlocking the gold, that information that's being kept in those association management platforms, all that demographic information, all that history information, all that parametric data, all those insights, and integrating them to Kentico. And that integration has kind of been, you know, broadly in a three-way thing. One, it's been about publishing content. So it's been about creating lots of detailed, structured content types in Kentico, and then publishing data from the association management platform, publishing data from EMS up to the website so that it's natively available in Kentico as content for you to do all the things that you want to do with content, whether that's, you know, syndicating the content around the website, you know, including it in your search, including it in your taxonomy, including it in your categorization, but also making it very structured, adding lots of granular structured content to it, and then really enabling you to use, I guess, the power of the Kentico content management platform to specialize and manage the content. And then some specialist commerce processes, really not going to talk about as in any detail at all, other than, you know, we've built out a suite of native commerce things that we think really adhere to some of those initial principles that I talked about around, you know, being linear, non-shopping cart based, very focused on get in, get out, get done. But really where I think the power of what we're bringing to the table and what we've been thinking about, and whether this is something that you know you talk to us about, or whether more it's just about your own thinking about how you integrate your back-end platforms, is really about making all of these insights and information available to the Kentico online marketing suite. So we got a series of products that we have that have some names that are on the screen. The names really aren't that relevant. What's really relevant is that we're publishing all of this data about the person, so essentially the contact, and making it native in Kentico and in the Kentico contact management application as Kentico activities. That publishing of that information is 100% native. So information from, in our world, EMS, in one or two cases from other AMS platforms, but then also integration that we've been able to be integrated in from other specialist applications, things like learning management systems, professional development management, you know, document management, etc. And having all of that information being published up to the Kentico contact management system in ways that are completely native, so that when you're then using the Kentico marketing suite, you don't have to think about anything beyond looking at Kentico, and your knowledge in Kentico is 100% transferable. So what does that mean? So essentially, really, the first thing I think it means, and this really goes to what I hope you're already doing as digital agencies, is, you know, it's enabling you to start thinking about the membership of an association or the audience groups, and to be applying all of that thinking that you would normally apply when you're designing the digital experience, you know. So you're enabled to start thinking about the different audience groups. You know, and if I think about like my AAPP example again here, you know, it's going to be pretty obvious as soon as I start looking at it from this perspective that these different audience groups are going to have different journeys that they're on, and therefore different requirements, different content, different services that they need. So if I want to think about a particular segment, you know, in this case, I'm going to look at Lindsay, the wedding photographer, and I'm thinking about Lindsay. She might have just graduated, say, and so she's got some specific needs. She's on a journey that is taking her towards maybe running her own small business. That, you know, so she needs to start developing a marketing strategy, and so she's going to have some very particular services from the whole service set that we provide. You know, specific courses that she's going to be interested in. She's going to have specific things that she wants from our marketplace. She's going to have specific groups that she wants to be members of. She might want to attain additional levels of qualification to enable her to promote her business better, so on and so forth. You know, so Lindsay's got these very specific services that she wants from us, and that we're able to understand in a more detailed way, because we've thought about her and her relationship with us as it relates to the kind of person that she is, her persona. And this is really when then the power of the Kentico EMS kicks in. So, you know, before, when we had this one size fits all website, we're now able to personalize every element of the experience for Lindsay. You know, we can promote different courses, we can promote different events, we can change the calls to action. You know, the number of customers and organizations that I see, you know, that have become a member is one of the biggest things on the website, and then 80% of the people who are viewing the site are members. You know, so what a wasted bit of real estate. So, you know, changing those calls to action, promoting different elements from the marketplace, offering different subscription options, promoting different awards, And for those of you who know Kentico and understand some of the EMS, you'll sort of understand that there's a suite of tools that are available based on having segmented Lindsay in this way, by using that kind of rich insight that we've got about her, using things like persona-based recommendations, content personalization, using the macro targeting. There's just so much that we can do here to target content that we think is relevant to Lindsay, or that our analysis has told us that is relevant to Lindsay's persona, and then use the testing tools to work out, is that working, and then to push Lindsay down automation funnels that are going to drive her towards particular goals, purposes, endpoints, based on what we know about her and the insights that we know about her, and really ultimately, show Lindsay the value of being a member. That she is going to be getting engaged to be to see the most value out of her relationship with AAPP, and that's really where we see Kentico EMS being so relevant to the association. So really, I just want to recap now and go back to kind of what I wanted to talk about in terms of the takeaways. It's really that if you're working in an association, or if you're a digital agency and you're providing services to an association, that it really is just vital to start thinking about that personalization and targeting, because they've got so much content, but because you've got so much available insight, that you can really provide a targeted and relevant experience. If you're working with Kentico EMS already, then I'm not going to be able to show you anything new, hopefully, around what those tools are that you've got at your disposal, but maybe hopefully you'll have seen just the relevance of sort of the insight that's available to you, maybe through integration of the association management platform, but more just to understand, that whether you even have to go looking for it yourself within the association, that members are providing the association with this incredible wealth of information, that there is such rich insight available that is really not available in any other sector, and that really it's incumbent upon you, incumbent upon us as service providers to the sector, to use that information to provide members with this truly relevant experience. And that's all I've got. I just want to thank you for listening, and I'm going to hand back to Eric.
Nice, excellent. Thank you very much. That was actually that was a great presentation. There actually before you hand anything back to me, I don't know if there's a slide you want to use to share out some of your company's information, but there are some questions that have come in during the presentation that maybe you can help provide some clarification around.
Sure. Actually, I don't have anything
Okay.
here in terms of more what you've provided on there. You can go to our website, contact us through 3dn.com.au. I suppose our aim is to support digital agencies providing services to associations, as much of those as providing those services directly. So please contact us through your website, or go to your digital agency if you're already working with someone, and get them to contact us. But yeah, essentially I just go to 3dn.com.au.
No worries. So there are, like I said, there are a couple of questions. One came in, I guess about halfway through. How is association data use to drive member experience? I guess when you're talking with your clients, I guess what are the ways that you're seeing association data being leveraged to drive the member experience most effectively?
I mean, probably I can just give you some examples.
Okay.
So I think probably immediate example jumps to mind. So we do some work with the Dental Association, and they run a volume of networking events, and so they're doing things like working out as they're promoting an event, they're using data around if they get a volume of registrations where they know that X number of people have attended the same college and obtained their degree from that college in the same period, then they will go and market to everyone else with a specialist marketing message that has attended that college, and say, guess what? There's these 3 people are already attending this event. Here might be a chance for you to reconnect with someone from that group or from your previous life. So that's a very simple example of using that data. What's probably, I suppose, more prevalent in terms of maybe that journey status. So pretty much every association we work with runs a CPD program. So it's very common to start as the CPD calendar. So CPD, sorry, continuing professional development. So I'm having to maintain a minimum points standard each year in order to continue to retain my qualification to practice. So invariably, there's a cohort that leave attaining their CPD until the last minute, or as close to the last minute as might be possible. And so it's very common to use data about how many points someone still needs to attain, what their areas of interest are, and then target them with invitations to specific training based on those parameters. And then really what some of the things that we're doing is really, when I talk about getting out of the way, so we're then doing sort of a bunch of specialist things about making those registration processes as simple as possible. So those invitations will enable people to register, in some cases directly from the email. Click buttons in the email that will process their registration without needing to visit the site even, or so enabling them to really just complete the process as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But there's just so much of this data available. What events they've previously attended. And really think about any of that parametric data, and we're just pushing all of that into the Kentico contact management system, and then using what is an incredible wealth of tools that you get out of the box just to put people into marketing automations, target them with email, show them specific content.
Yeah. In the same vein, there's a lot of conversations going on recently about private information, type of protection of private information and things along those lines, especially for tracking members, tracking site visitors. Is that something that you see being a prevalent topic within associations at this point?
Well, I'm not sure really. I mean, it certainly hasn't been. I don't think that. I mean, in terms of keeping it private, for sure, sharing it, but in terms of using it in that one-to-one relationship, I can't see as an issue. I don't think it's been an issue to now. so that the information available that members are providing, they certainly seem to be doing willingly, and I can't really see that changing.
Nice. And actually, here's another question that just came in. What do you see as being the presiding benefit that associations recognize for their members? Or I guess the question is, actually, I was trying to paraphrase, but what do you see as the most significant benefit to members in their interactions with associations who are providing these more custom experiences?
Benefit. I mean, I think that ultimately it goes to the value proposition of membership. So if I think about any of our customers, it's pretty easy to kind of understand at some top level what the value proposition of their membership should be. And I'll try and think of an example of one association, maybe even say someone like the Real Estate Institute. So there's loads of kind of realtor institutes in the US. In some part of my previous life, I've seen. So they're providing a value proposition to those members, essentially about helping make them better realtors, helping them promote themselves to the public better, helping them become more technically proficient, which I guess in pretty much all cases, or most cases, is about helping helping them grow their business. They want to sell more properties or whatever that might be. So the benefit ultimately is, are we doing that? Are we providing to that what we set out as our value proposition? And for the most part, what we see for most associations is that the information that they have, like the content that they have that could provide that benefit, is locked away, and in many cases members can't get to it, they can't find it. So these kind of personalisation tools and experiences help us to kind of unlock that content, so that members can see, actually, there's more here for me, and I guess by extension better understand the value proposition.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent.
Hopefully that answers.
Yeah, thank you. Trying to see if there's any other questions, but this was great. I really appreciate you taking the time this afternoon and presenting to our group. Hopefully everyone who joined us today got something out of it. We did record the session, so we will be making this available after the webinar. But I'm sure that Mick and his team will also be happy to reach out and have private conversations on any particular interests as well. But thank you, Mick, and thank you for everybody for joining us. Hopefully everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Eric.